unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to stay for very long, but I wanted to mention to you a couple of things that you might need to be aware of in Mississippi. The short answer of why we don't have more choice in Mississippi is because the leadership of the Mississippi House of Representatives won't allow it. Every year, the state Senate passes a charter school bill. Still not to the point yet where they're ready to ask much more than that, but hopefully that will change over the course of the campaign this year as we encourage more debate on more options for parents, and that really is where the focus needs to be in the debate, because what Bruno said is, and what you have seen, people have the idea that it's their teacher that you're opposed to, or even their district. It's the same thing with congressmen. You know, everybody hates Congress, but they love their congressman. Not everybody anymore, but that's generally the attitude, or why we don't see broader change. So our organization put together a much shorter video than this. It's about 20 minutes. It's called A Stone's Throw, and I have 8 or 10 here that, but it's also available online. You can go to our website, mspolicy.org. There's that. You can actually go to astonessthrowthemovie.com, if you can remember all that. Or even just Parent Power. We have a separate website that is focused on charter school promotion, basically, in Mississippi. It really is just educating people on what charter schools are. It has some news about some things that have happened in Mississippi. There is a bill that passed last year. We used to have a charter school law that would allow only conversion, only the conversion of existing public schools. But in the 11 years that that was law, there was only ever one school that did that, and it was already a magnet school in the Cleveland district. Because the restrictions were so tight that it really wasn't worth it to try to do that. So last year, there was a charter school bill that was passed in the Senate, as they have done a number of times. It got to the House, and the chairman of the House Education Committee, Cecil Brown, who has introduced a charter school bill that we had drafted for years. He has introduced that and said how supportive he was, but he couldn't get it out of his committee, really, and that really was the honest truth. The makeup of his committee is, it didn't matter how much he pushed it, he wouldn't have been able to get it out of the committee. However, he took that Senate charter school bill, replaced it with some language that he wanted, that basically actually is the parent trigger that Bruno mentioned, except it has more restrictions on it. And that went to the House floor. An amendment was offered by Herb Frierson from Poplarville that was a true charter school amendment. It almost would have gotten the bill back to what the Senate passed. This would be the first vote ever on the House floor on a true charter school proposal, and it passed the House. So Cecil Brown had said, I can't get it out of committee. If I could ever get it out of committee, I'm sure it would pass on the House floor. And that was the chance, and it passed. Cecil, again, who I mistakenly had trusted on this all along, because he had introduced our bill, he had hearings, he had given us full airing of our views. He talked to a few House members. They reconsidered the vote and killed that amendment. So it sent it back to his own language. It got to when it went to conference to work out the differences between the House and the Senate. The Senate Education Committee Chairman, Budette Carmichael from Meridian, didn't really care about charters anyway. He just gave in to everything that the House wanted. The only change that was made in conference was that they changed what Cecil had called innovative schools to call those charter schools. So we actually have a charter school law, but it's not really a charter school law. So just as you discuss things, and especially as you research things, you may see, well, we actually do have a charter school law, but we don't really. It is, in part, the parent trigger, where if a school has been failing 3 years in a row, then the parents can petition to have the school converted to a charter school. The problem is, even if they do that, then every decision that's made by the new school, the new entity, is still the same school. In the first place, that's part of the problem, is that you still have the same people going to the same school. And, but their decisions can be reviewed by the district and by the state. Administrative decisions by the district, and the academic decisions evaluated and potentially overruled by the state. So there really is there's not the freedom that a true charter school would have. So that's the setting that we face in Mississippi. This movie, it lasts 18 minutes. Again, you can see it online if you want, or I'll leave these up here for you to pick up if you'd rather have the DVD. We talked to some people in Jackson. Ronnie Pruitt, who's a pastor in West Jackson, some parents here. We talked to some folks in Greenville, including the principal of Greenville High School, who is on here saying we ought to have charter school. He said, if I'm not doing my job, then parents need to have options. It is your child, so you ought to have options. So we even have a public school principal on here that's saying we ought to have this. We went to Clarksdale and talked to some people, and even filmed part of this in the office of Bill Luckett, who's a Democrat running for governor. That may be the only thing that some of us would agree with him on, but he does support charter schools. And then we went across, so we featured these people in Mississippi saying, here's why we need charter schools, here's why we want them. We went across the bridge to Helena, Arkansas, across from Clarksdale. That's where we got the title for our movie, A Stone's Throw. It's because parents, just a stone's throw from Clarksdale, have options that people in Clarksdale don't. We also, and it's a KIPP school. You saw several KIPP schools featured on here. It's a KIPP school in Helena, Arkansas, where they just had their first graduating class, and all of them were accepted to college.
How many students?
It's only a handful, I think. Fewer than 30, I think. However, they have now added, they started with the middle school, and then they added a high school as the kids got older. They've added an elementary school now. But the kids came in, again, these are low-income kids, 95% black student population. And by the 8th grade, they were outscoring the state average for 9th graders on Algebra 1 tests.
Wow.
Now, one other aspect of this is we keep hearing all the arguments for early childhood education. The reason we're having dropouts in high school is because they didn't get a good start, so it just kind of, after a while, they just kind of lose their ability. Well, this KIPP school, if for no other reason to focus on their achievements, is that they took them when they were in the 4th grade and advanced them significantly. Same thing with a school in, and I'll close with this, in Memphis. Again, just a stone's throw away from DeSoto County, where in inner city Memphis, these kids who could only get into a charter school under Tennessee law at the time could only get into the school if they were from a failing school or if they themselves were failing. So these were not stellar students or from a stellar background. And yet, the exact same thing was true for them, that all of their 8th graders scored higher on the state Algebra 1 test than the 9th graders for the rest of the state, not just Memphis city schools, which are horrible in themselves. That school is run by Curtis Weathers, who played football at Ole Miss back in the 80s, I think, and then he played pro football. Looks like he can still play pro football. And his passion for the kids and the way that they perform is truly inspiring. Everybody on this DVD is black. And the reason that we did that is to overcome the stereotype that we hear so often with charter schools, especially in southern states, that this is just a way to reinstitute public funding of private schools. And so it's just the white people that are pushing that. So we probably overdid this in having only black students, black parents, black pastors, black teachers who are saying, this is what we need. So I offer that to you. I also will leave with you, most of you hopefully have this, just the Pocket Guide of our Governing by Principle booklet that we're now out of because we've given away so many. We should have a new supply next. We're getting 10,000 new ones printed to be distributed that has a principle, and the last principle in here is that parents, not government, are responsible for the education and upbringing of their children. And so I offer that to you as well. And then the last thing is on April 5th, so just 10 days away, we're hosting an afternoon, starting with lunch and going through the afternoon. You're welcome to stay for as much of it as you want. It's the kickoff of our Leading Toward Liberty campaign, where we are inviting people who are even thinking about running for office to come and hear, first of all, the right motivation for running for office, what to look for in candidates, so you don't have to be a candidate, but what to look for in candidates, what principles, we'll go over at least 10 principles of governing that we've written about. And here's the newest twist on this for our organization is we will be offering specific policy ideas that implement these principles so that candidates will know, okay, if I decide to run, I'll have some backup. I'll have the intellectual backup. And included in that will be the things that Bruno mentioned earlier, those options. And this is not an agenda. We're saying these are 10 things we want you to endorse. We're saying here's some ideas that are consistent with the principles that you can choose to run on. And then after we do that, we're actually going to have a 2.5-hour campaign school that's put on by the Leadership Institute, Morton Blacklett's group out of Washington, that will just go over the basics of how to run a campaign. Some of y'all might be interested in that if you want to help out on the local campaign. The filing deadline is not until June 1st for the legislature. So if you have anybody who's thinking about running, encourage them to come to this, and they can find out what they can run on, the right principles for running, and then how to run a campaign. So,
one question. Would you repeat again the name of the Stone Throw, the movie? Is that what you said? The Stone's Throw, the movie?
A Stone's Throw. It's just a Stone's Throw away. A Stone's Throw, the movie.
.com?
.com, I believe.
.com.
I know you can get there going to parentpower.net.
Parent Power.
And that's our website that's dedicated to charter schools.
Okay.
And then our general site is MS Policy.
Right. Yeah, I have yours.